Shots in the Dark contains graphic depictions of events that may not be suitable for all listeners. We encourage all of our listeners to be open-minded and engage in dialogue with us through any of our social media accounts or email. Anything unrelated to elephants is irrelevant.
Elephant.
Welcome to Shots in the Dark, the show where trigger warnings are becoming a regular thing.
Oh, gosh. I'm Whitney.
And I'm Ty.
And hi.
And hi.
And welcome back, or hello, and please stick with us.
Yes. What are we shotsing?
Well,
you made us something lovely.
So this one is, it's like, have you ever, oh yeah, you're the one with the vegan pies. You've eaten vegan pies.
Yeah.
So it's like, take the crust from a vegan pie, so it's like a little nutty.
Yeah.
And then lemon cheesecake on top.
Cheers. Yes, I absolutely get that.
You see what I mean?
So now that we've taken our shot and we're feeling a little loosey-goosey, trigger warning.
This makes me feel not so loosey-goosey.
I really care about people that care about us, and if there's something people don't want to hear, then by all means, fast forward, go to the next part of the show,
right,
to the paranormal portion, because we care about you. But this is not the worst story we've ever told on the show by any means, but it does contain rape.
Okay.
A corpse does get mutilated.
Oh.
And the mutilation involves the genitalia.
Oh.
That being said...
Did you bring it back at Dark Days?
I did.
Yay! Sada Abe!
I'm doing Sada Abe.
Okay,
so
I was waiting for Sada Abe to happen, and I'm excited it's happening today.
I may be making it mandatory for us to name this episode something that I'm pretty sure you can already anticipate.
Yeah.
Sada Abe was born in 1905 to Shigeyoshi and Katsu Abe, and she was the seventh of 8 children.
Okay.
This is Japan, in case you couldn't already tell by the names. The Abes were an upper middle class family of tatami makers. They lived in Tokyo's Kanda neighborhood.
And what's a tatami?
A tatami is a mat that was typically used for flooring.
Okay. Every
Japanese home utilized them, and many of them still do utilize them. So
yeah, killer.
It was a very lucrative industry to be in.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It is, especially because money is really cool, right?
Well, money's really cool, but I also enjoy the fact that it was something that's so utilized.
I think I just like the word because it's very fun, tatami. Abe's father, Shigeyoshi, inherited the tatami mat business from his adoptive parents. And when Sada was born, he was 52 years old. While some people who knew Shigeyoshi believed he could be somewhat self-centered and materialistic, he was generally described by most as being an honest and upright man. Both Shigeyoshi and Sada's mother, Katsu, had no legal blemishes on their records to speak of.
Okay.
So all around pretty upstanding people.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously can't account for what's happening in the home, but there's no evidence that something went awry in the house.
Correct. Sada's older brother, Shintaro, he was a well-known womanizer. And after he had finally settled down and got married, he stole a large portion of the family's money and ran off with it with his wife.
Oh, good. Super.
Yeah, not the greatest thing to do to your family. Sada's sister, Tedeko, also had a poor reputation in town as well, unfortunately. She was well known to have many sexual partners.
Okay.
And as a form of punishment, Shigeyoshi had sent Tedeko away to work in a brothel.
Okay.
But because he did it as a form of punishment, in his mind, I think he believed that it would prevent her from, in the future, continuing that lifestyle if she was forced to do it over and over again without having any say in the matter, which, for me, is incredibly messed up.
Well, it's super messed up, but it's, let's say on a tamer note, it's when your parents find you smoking and then are like, smoke this whole pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, just in a much more awful way.
Yeah.
This is interesting, though, and this is how we know that it was a form of punishment, because he didn't leave her in the brothel for very long.
Good.
He brought her back pretty shortly after sending her away, and as Tadeko's past as a sex worker was not seen as a hindrance to marriage in the Abe family's socioeconomic class.
Okay.
She was soon married after returning.
Excellent.
So that would have been real different if the Abe family was not an upper middle class family.
Yeah, totally.
People can kind of look past it if you have
If you
the
weren't
money
doing
and
it
the
out of
connections.
necessity, yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. As a child, Katsu doted on Sada and encouraged her to take lessons in both singing and playing the shamisen,
Right.
which is that real fun string instrument
Yes.
that geishas play.
So pretty.
At the time, those two particular skills were more closely associated with geishas and sex workers,
Yeah.
rather than being seen as artistic endeavors.
Right.
So it's important to know this about geishas, though, because geishas are an important factor in this story. They were seen as beautiful and glamorous. They were also seen kind of like celebrities in a way. And although sex work was a part of being a geisha, they primarily were artists who entertained. In fact, the word geisha means artist or artistic person in Japanese. I did watch a few mini YouTube documentaries about geishas modern day to see how they live today. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was they were talking about how geishas specialize mostly in the art of conversation. And on top of that, playing instruments, traditional dances, and singing. But the conversation is such a big part of it because what they mostly do for gentlemen and visitors is they make them feel special. They make them feel important, and they flirt with them, but they typically don't give them anything.
Yeah, totally. They've also, by the way, inspired a skincare line. That's pretty incredible.
So Sada began skipping classes to go to these lessons, and in an effort to look like a geisha, she began wearing expensive and stylish makeup.
Okay.
The family problems with her brother and sister, Shintaro and Teruko, were all happening right around the time that Sada was in her early teen years. And because of the constant chaos and fighting in her home, she was constantly being sent out of the house alone. It's around this time that she fell in with a crowd of similarly independent teenagers. When Sada was 15, she was raped by one of her acquaintances. I know, it's real sad.
Yeah, it sucks.
Her parents, though, they were actually very supportive of her, and they tried to do what they could in her defense.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Good job, parents, man.
Especially for the early 1900s.
Yeah.
But the trauma from all of it was way more than Sada could handle.
Yeah.
And understandably so.
Yeah, totally.
After that, she became uncontrollable, irresponsible, and an altogether difficult teenager. With some haste about them in an attempt to find Sada a place in society with some direction, they sold her off to a geisha house in Yokohama. Toku Abe, who was Sada's oldest sister, testified later that Sada had wished to become a geisha and had wanted it her whole life, but Sada always maintained that her father forced her to become a geisha as a punishment for her promiscuity. And that was even in her adult years, she said that. Being a geisha, and a successful one at that, required apprenticeship from childhood, with years spent learning to sing, dance, play music, and study other art forms such as conversation, which we had spoken about just a moment ago. Because this was not the case with Sada, she became an incredibly low-ranking geisha because she lacked the skill and the years of training that all of the other geishas had received.
She also wasn't taking them super seriously, was she? Her classes for some of the art form.
She enjoyed them. She went to them. But when I say that back in the day, it required apprenticeship from childhood.
No, I agree.
Like very small children, and that was their everyday life.
Right.
Sunrise to sundown, they would train, where she would only skip some classes and started doing it as an early teenager.
Right.
Not as a 7 or 8-year-old Mako. Because she was such a low-ranking geisha, and she was not nearly as skilled as the other geishas in her geisha house, or the competing ones, her primary duty was to simply provide sex. So she continued working at that capacity as a geisha for 5 years before eventually contracting syphilis, which would require her to undergo regular examinations like a legally licensed sex worker.
Right.
And Sada, weighing that option, decided that she was going to leave the geisha house and pursue the better paying profession, which was to become a sex worker. Understandably so. I think that I would rather be a highly skilled and prominent sex worker than a low-ranking geisha who other geishas looked down upon.
I agree.
So there's an era of being surrounded by people of different statuses, in my mind, associated with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does.
So from there, she went to become a licensed sex worker in Osaka's famous Tobata brothel district, where she quickly earned a bad reputation for being a troublemaker.
Okay.
So she would oftentimes
Oh gosh.
she would oftentimes steal money from clients and then try running away from the brothel and disappearing with the funds, and would try to not return, only to be tracked down and retrieved. And then this went on for about 2 years before she eventually escaped and became a waitress, but was unsatisfied with the wages that she was making as a waitress.
Because serving sucks.
I hear that from everybody, but also different time, different place. I also hear from all my friends that are servers that they're kind of addicted to the money, even though they don't love the job.
Yeah, I never love the job, but it's really nice to leave with money every night.
Leave with a pocket full of cash.
Yep.
I'm about that life, man.
I know, me too. I think about it sometimes. I'm like, maybe I should be a server again.
But
except for I don't like crying every day.
She quickly made the decision, because she was so unhappy with the wages, to return to sex work. Although this time she was not going to enter the licensed sex work system. She was going to work at an unlicensed brothel instead, where she felt she had more control over her life and she was not owned by a system anymore.
Okay. Did she acquire more money by doing so, or she just didn't want the ownership?
It wasn't about the money. Do you remember how I said that she was always sought after when she would run away and then retrieved?
Yeah.
There was a well-organized system for licensed sex workers, and they would, if you left, they would bring you back against your will. Because you agreed to be there and you were licensed and it was an obligation. She didn't want that anymore. She wanted the option to, if she wanted out of it and to make a different life, she wanted to have that choice. A year after moving to the unlicensed brothels, Sada's mother had died. And she needed to return to Tokyo to visit her mother's grave and spend some time with her father.
Right.
Upon returning, she had made the decision to enter the sex work market in Tokyo, since she was already there and it was a different scene that she had not entered before. So there would be new clients and potentially higher paying clients.
And people that possibly don't know about her status with her STI.
Correct. Soon after she had entered the sex work industry in Tokyo, she became a mistress for the very first time. So good for her.
Yeah, you're protected.
You've got security, you've got your main squeeze. All you have to do is that one person, and they're going to give you potentially a place to live, money in your pocket, all the
new
things.
Clothing, lots of other items.
A year after her mother's passing, Sada's father fell ill. And after she went to his home and nursed him for 10 days to try to get him well, Shigeyoshi Abe eventually passed away. And interestingly enough, that was almost exactly a year after his wife had died.
Well, there's always been this thought process that people that are truly, truly in love, their heart will break and they will let themselves die so they can be with their person.
I know, and I think that that's a real thing.
I think it could be a real thing.
In October of 1934, Sada was actually arrested during a police raid on the unlicensed brothel at which she had been working.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of that brothel had a good friend named Kinosuke Kasahara. There's so many good names in this story.
Good. Yeah, no,
so
seriously.
Many. He was well connected and had arranged to have all of the women released from jail. Kasahara was attracted to Abe as soon as he had laid eyes on her, and upon finding that she had no debts to speak of, the two of them entered into a mutually desired relationship, now making Sada his mistress.
Okay, I was going to ask if it had any bearing on her other situation with that gentleman.
It didn't, because I never told you that that was a short-lived thing that ended pretty abruptly.
Got it.
she doesn't stay in one place for too long. So he actually went as far as to set up